Hey guys, welcome back to Dmac Kustoms, or if it's your first time here, welcome to Dmac Kustoms. Come on in, that's alright, don't be scared, just make sure you hit the subscribe button and you can stay as long as you like. But anyway, today's video we're going to be talking about skirts and arches. Not those kinds of skirts and arches, we're talking fender skirts and wheel arches. Okay, so as I've probably mentioned before, with the when I got the 51, a fair bit of work had already been done to it at previous owner and his mate apparently. Some of that work had been, they'd done some work around the rear wheel arches, and yeah, which was pretty. Also, what came with the car was a set of reproduction aftermarket fender skirts, and I thought, this is great, you know, so got a set of those, and so I pulled them out of the box and went to sort of fit them on just to see what it looked like, and neither of them would fit either side, and they're both hitting and interfering in different places. So I sort of thought, well, if I'm gonna have to sort of cut open what work had already been done, I might as well change it up and do a teardrop wheel arch sort of thing. And we were in lockdown, of course, so there was nothing better to do, and so I sort of started cutting into one side, and both sides had their good points and bad points, and but they both kind of, the one good point on both sides was that this corner was quite good. Okay, just wanted to show you this side real quick. This is the side I had to actually cut completely off. It's still a bit ripply and stuff, but you can see how far out it was kicked up like this, so it kind of, you looked along the sill and it come along and jumped up like that, and then things just didn't really sort of line up that well. So fortunately I sort of made that template and gave it all a bit of a, kind of had to make some adjustments and whatnot to get it all to sit in nicely, and then pretty much this side is almost the same as the other side. There were a few little issues on this side that were different to the other side underneath, but still managed to do it all quite pretty much the same. So do it again, which allowed me access to the inside of the underneath the patch panel, which was quite good because it meant I could then finish up putting the sill area in that had been started and not finished, and it was quite a bit easier without that patch panel in place. And as with all my sort of internal repairs and stuff like that, I still etch prime everything and sort of seal it all up from the inside as much as I can before putting the patch panels back on. So that particular patch panel was about 25mm out at one end, over a span of about that much, so it kicked up quite a bit. We got that done and put some little fillets and stuff in there and sort of welded it all up. And then I sort of decided to make a plan on doing the wheel arches on both sides, and so I made a template, which I still have. This is about a year ago I did this. So I made this template out of a piece of core flute that I had kicking around, using the aftermarket reproduction fender skirts as a bit of a guide to sort of trace around and get it sort of started, and then I could make it reversible and do lots of measuring and stuff. And so this template kind of defined how it was all going to work. I actually taped this piece of core flute onto the car and then run masking tape to get the curves that I wanted. And sort of I then was able to sort of map out what I needed to cut off and then what I needed to do. And so anyway, cut out the pieces I didn't want, and that gave me a good look on the inside of what had been done on the inside. And both inner fenders had a bit of how we say, attention at some point as well, you know. So and again, kind of not really finished. Some of it was quite good, and some of it was just not finished, which like I wouldn't have left it like that before putting the outer skin back on it. So I had to address all this inside stuff in behind here and make up a new sort of support area for the actual teardrop part of the guard, and reconfigure all of that. So did all that, finished up welding up all sorts of holes and all sorts of other rubbish inside there, and good coat of each primer, seam sealed all the inside of the welds in there as well, and then started making up these pieces to come out on the outside. And kind of funny thing happened when I bought, just before lockdown, I bought a sheet of 1mm cold rolled from local steel supplier, and as I was pulling it off the back of the old bomb truck, I slipped off and ended up kind of putting a big curve in to about half of the sheet, which was actually quite fortunate because it actually kind of put a natural curve in pretty much as I needed for the curve of the guards, the curve of the skirts and stuff. So I economically laid my template out around on that curved part of the sheet and traced it all off and cut out all my pieces, and then started sort of hand forming the return lips and stuff like that onto the new shape of the guard. Have to do all this hand. I don't have a shrinker or stretching devices of any sort. I did spend a day trying to make one, but it was a fail. It didn't work, and so I ended up with some of this, cutting recesses in it and sort of pulling it around, welding it back up, letting the heat from the weld actually create some of the curve. So kind of got a bit of a natural curve going on into here, but it all actually worked out kind of much easier than I thought. And so the next stage after that was to start making the old skirts to fit. And so I followed much the same sort of processes for the body part as I did, and then brought that into how I built these for the on the actual skirt. So again, I spent ages trying to figure out how I was going to do these sort of fold overs and kind of shrink it and stretch it and things like that. So it became a lot of cutting, little cuts and lots of little welds, and then some sort of folding on my rudimentary sort of folding devices, which pretty much meant my hammer and the vise and some bits of steel and wood and things like that I've got kicking around in the garage. And so after that I had to figure out a way to hold them on. So I was looking at the reproduction ones I had, and they had a sort of similar setup to this. So I had some bits of round bar floating around in the garage, some bits of old kids' toys and things like that, and bent up a couple of handles opposite to each other, and basically used some long shank bolts, cut the threaded part off and worked it all out and drilled some sort of locator holes up into here, and so the whole sort of fender skirt just clips on as the Chev aftermarket and factory sort of stuff does, using the original sort of this thing here. I don't know what you call it, but yeah, using that and using slotted holes and then a fixed hole down this end. There is a rubber trim that goes on here, so I had to leave allowances and stuff to clear that. And this is getting a bit of surface rust on there. I'll have to look into this soon and clean it up and get some primer on there before it gets too far away. So the actual process of putting these on is pretty straightforward. I'll just put the old camera down there. I don't remember how to do it. I haven't been on here for a while. Just like that. Still a little bit of fitting finish to do and stuff to get them all to fit nice and snug, but they actually fit pretty good. When this thing's down on the ground, you won't even really be able to see it. I have to figure out to get this top to pull out a little bit more. One of the concerns I had when I was making these was when I was making them, I had the rear axle hanging way down lower, so this was the tolerance between the tyre and this was pretty close, and I was sort of thinking this isn't going to work, and then I realised that at ride height it was going to be up higher, and it gives me just enough clearance in there, and I have got a bit of scope to clearance that return there as well. But ultimately what I'm looking to do later down the track is a stainless trim that runs right through to the end, and the gravel guards, hopefully, if I can figure it out. But that'll be another video somewhere down the track. Okay, so the other side had a I didn't actually end up cutting the second side off, the passenger side. It was actually all nice and straight along the bottom. It followed the right line and it was welded in the right place, but the welds were really puckered in. So I spent a good day trying to get tools, devices, some kind of dollies and hammers and all sorts of stuff down inside behind that patch panel to then try to kind of lever it and sort of hammer it and flush it back out to just get it so it didn't pucker all the way in. And I had some success, but it's not like file finished by any stretch. But pretty much I think it'll be straight enough to be able to sort of skim it or lead it, whatever you want to do, or whatever I decide to do. It looks pretty scody at the moment because it's just got like a rust converter to stuff sprayed over it, and lots of file and hammer marks and things like that. But when we get closer to doing the final prep on this thing, we'll revisit a lot of these areas and just give them just that one little bit more of a smooth out and beat them into submission a little bit. Until then, they're fine as they are. So thanks for watching this episode of Dmac Kustoms, or this video about the arches and skirts. I know some of you people were thinking it was something else, but it was just car stuff. And if you'd like to see some more videos and follow along with the build of the 51 and maybe some work on the old bomb truck, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell for the notifications, and ask any questions or maybe some comments down the bottom, and we'll see you next time.